Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Fundraising for Aquaponics in Schools presentation for the 2021 Aquaponics Conference. Before we get started, I'd like to thank the Aquaponics Association for asking me to present on this topic and for offering me an advisor position for the STEM committee for the Aquaponics Association earlier this year. Also, thanks for everyone in attendance today who paid to come to the conference or who is watching it for free. We all have the best of intentions when it comes to our youth and implementing aquaponics in as many places as we can. So a little bit about myself. Once the screen switches. My name is Sam Fleming, and I am the executive director and co-founder of a Charlotte being North Carolina based 501c3 nonprofit organization called 100 Gardens. We install and implement aquaponics programs in K through 12 schools, and we also have programs in both juvenile and adult correction facilities. I am also, as previously stated, one of the STEM advisors for the Aquaponics Association, and in 2017 I presented at TEDx Charlotte, and you can actually find my talk on YouTube on the TEDx channel if you look up aquaponics and a new way of thinking. So, where to get started? We need to first address what the problem is before we can come to what the solution is for successful aquaponics programs in schools, especially in the funding. And what you'll kind of learn through this whole presentation is that funding and programming are directly related. You don't just go get money to put an aquaponics program in a school. You have to have a lot of things figured out in order to get the buy-in from financial supporters or from the school itself. So all this stuff is tied in. Now, the title of this slide may look a little weird, but it's called Aquaponics Systems in Schools Don't Work. And what we really mean by that is simply putting an aquaponics system in a school is not going to be sustainable from a program standpoint or financially. We really have to have programs in place because schools are where we go to learn. So having all of the learning materials and everything incorporated is the key to getting funding. Now, first bullet here, aquaponics systems must be accompanied by programs. This means curriculum, either aligning with educational standards for your state or just a simple curriculum designed for an after-school program or a vocational training program or whatever it is you're trying to do. But you gotta have actual tangible educational materials and activities that go along with the aquaponics system that engage students in an educational experience. Two, one of the reasons that aquaponics systems and school gardens in general are not that successful, and I'll say this by and large because I've seen so many school garden programs, the ones that are highly touted across the nation are the successful ones. A lot of the other ones fail within just 1 or 2 years. And one of the reasons is because teacher turnover is very high in public schools. So you have your wonderful science teacher who says aquaponics could be really valuable to our students. And then she's the star teacher that year, or he's the star teacher. And then they get promoted the next year. And then the next unsuspecting teacher comes in and there's an aquaponics system in the school and they're tasked with running it. Now, what if they don't have an interest for aquaponics? What if they are intimidated by it? Then the program falls by the wayside, and then you have a stinky fish poop filled aquaponics system that no one wants to take care of. And then people start to look at aquaponics as more trouble than it's worth. And then also fundraising is difficult when tangible programming is not offered. Now, we've talked about this a little bit already. Simply having a system in a school is not going to excite financial supporters. But having a program with goals and educational outcomes will. What this means is if you go to, let's say, a donor, and you're trying to build a small aquaponics system at your school, saying we want to put an aquaponics system in a school is not all that compelling unless that person really thinks aquaponics is cool. What is compelling is saying we are going to bring in a symbiotic fish and plant production system that ties in with test questions for biology and earth and environmental science and math and immerses our students in hands-on education. That is exciting. That is what gets people wanting to support the installation of an aquaponics system and the implementation of a program. Now, this is what we want to see when we see aquaponics programming. We want to see happy faces on our students. We want to see teachers engaged. We want to see people working with their hands. This is what the whole thing is about. This picture here is from Webb Street School in Gastonia, North Carolina. They are a special needs school, and the 16 to 20-year-old special needs students operate a 2,000 square foot aquaponics greenhouse where they have partnered with a restaurant, and they raise several thousands of dollars every year to sustain their program. And some of the students have actually been hired at the restaurant that purchases the lettuce. And so now it's turning into, employment opportunities. This is another example of what a great aquaponics program looks like. Good aquaponics programs are generally run like businesses. And you'll see here, the pipes hanging up in the air are full with beautiful plants. And that is because students are coming in each day and they have a set of standard operating procedures that they have to complete each day. There's accountability for the teachers, there's accountability for the students, and a ton of food is being produced. Now, what are some of the key components of a successful aquaponics program? First, like we said before, a tangible educational program. Two, this might surprise a couple people, but what we really learned is that climate control is a must. A lot of people think about just an aquaponics system, but if it's 10 degrees outside, aquaponics won't get you anywhere. And also think about this. In almost all of the places where people live here in the United States, or really anywhere, there is a winter. And half of the school year is during winter. So school gardens inherently don't really work because you're not growing tomatoes in January in most of the places where people live. So the gardening season is not even really happening during the school year by and large. So you either need a greenhouse or you need to put an aquaponics system indoors under lights so you can get year-round experiences for the students. The third, this is really critical. You have got to have support from administration. This means principals, assistant principals, the heads of departments. Just having one or two science teachers on board may work for a couple years. But when those teachers leave the school, if they do, that program is very likely to collapse. But sustainable programs with administrative support last for years, because when they are invested in the program, the administration, when that teacher leaves, they hire someone else who's going to come in and carry that program forward, because that program gives the school something to brag about. It makes them look good. It increases their enrollment in their schools. And this is how you really get them on board. This last point here is community partnerships. And this is where really a lot of the beautiful stuff happened. In that last picture, you saw the special needs school partnered up with a restaurant. That's a community partnership. And that restaurant provides revenue to the program to make sure that that educational aquaponics program is continued and that students for years to come get these great educational opportunities. Community partnerships could also mean partnering with food charities, local corporate sponsorships. It doesn't have to mean money though. It could just mean awareness and buy-in. So when you think about community partnerships, think about what organizations would benefit from what an aquaponics system has to offer, and what will we benefit from that partner? And you have to start identifying those things. Here is a picture of Myers Park High School in Charlotte, North Carolina. They produce about 160 heads of lettuce each week, various lettuce. And you'll see here, this is a controlled environment greenhouse. This is in January. So the students are coming in and they're able to work with the system all year long. This here is a greenhouse biology class. And there's just so many classes that touch the subject. But these students maintain the system. They would come in at 8 o'clock each morning, spend 30 minutes in the greenhouse going through the procedures, and then my organization would show up once a week and we'd run activities with the students. So when we say climate control or controlled environment agriculture, we're talking about greenhouses. Now, when we talked about administrative support, here's where it also gets, here's a creative way that I've learned to do it. So at Walter G. Byers School, which you'll see here on this little news headline, we installed an aquaponics system there. And the principal here on the left, Mr. Calloway, he sought us out and said, I want to do aquaponics in my school. We did aquaponics at the last school I went to, or was the principal at, and it was awesome. So let's bring one to my school. So he raised some money. We built a system there. I am always looking for PR opportunities for our programs. So I contacted the local news. And for all of you listening, local news is always looking for stories, always, always, always. And when it comes to young kids, when it comes to high school kids, when it comes to environment, when it comes to food, and just hands-on, feel-good programming, they will give you a story. They will. You just have to reach out. So Wilson's World from our local news called us up, said, we're going to come to the school. Now, I could have gone out there and I could have met with them and put my own face on the news, but we want sustainable programs. And the leader at that school is not us. The leader is the principal who had the vision to bring aquaponics. So when the news came and wanted me to talk to them, I said, you need to talk to Mr. Calloway. Now Mr. Calloway is on the news bragging about the aquaponics system to the thousands of people that are watching it. He is bought in, he is invested, and he can take the credit for something amazing that he's developed. So administration needs to be recognized. And if you can recognize them and give them credit, they will support the teachers, they will hold teachers accountable, and you'll have a really sustainable program. Now, how do you get started? Let's say you don't even have an aquaponics system at a school. Now, this talk is not going to discuss specific grant opportunities because that's really not what fundraising is. We're not there yet. Fundraising is a mindset and a process. Now, first thing I would do, if you haven't done this in a school before, is start out with a small aquaponics system, even if you want to go big. And you do this to provide future financial supporters with a proof of concept. We've done this several times. What you do is you can seek funds for a small system with local grants up to $5,000, that kind of size, which are generally easy to get if you have a teacher writing the grant with you or an administrator, or you can find local business sponsors. One of the really hot topics right now for local businesses is that they say that they struggle to find talent for their businesses, young people. Oh, young people these days don't want to work. All that stuff that you hear, even though we know in large part it's not really true. But local businesses love when they see that schools are teaching real hands-on stuff, and they will sponsor programs. All you got to do is ask and find the ones that align with your mission. Just go to companies' websites and look at their mission statement. If it aligns, invite them to a cup of coffee or just do a phone call and tell them what you're trying to do. So once you can get some funds up for a small aquaponics system, then you got to have a program in place, even if this thing is just a desktop system. Now, a program could be as simple as an after-school club with a couple lesson plans and a daily task list for students. This is enough to get engagement, and it's enough to bring structure to a program. Structure is really important here. And the third thing is, even if you're small, develop and sign an agreement with the school immediately. This secures support from the start. What administration wants to see is that when you're doing like an aquaponics project, that you're going to go the distance. You're not going to be there for 1 year and then it all falls apart. So if you can develop an agreement with the school saying, hey, we're going to do this for several years. First year is going to look like this and we're going to try to get here. They tend to really appreciate that because they know that you're trying to bring a really valuable asset to the school. And if you can get a signed agreement with the school saying you're going to run a program at a school for X amount of years, they sometimes will say, well, how much is it going to cost? And they might even fund the first one because they see how valuable the program could be for their students and their school as a whole. This is an example of a small aquaponics system that we built at West Charlotte High School in Charlotte, North Carolina. We secured funds for this through the teacher, Mr. Ward, who you'll see on the left there. And he worked with the Charlotte Hornets basketball team and secured a $5,000 grant. And we built an aquaponics system there. We started every Friday we had an after school club. It started with 3 students and then it moved up to 8 students that year. And after just a year and a half of running that program, we applied for a grant with the Campbell Soup Foundation and secured $20,000 to develop an entire indoor aquaponics lab. that will partner with local restaurants, and it will self-fund itself, which we will talk about in some of the later slides. But it can really be as simple as starting this, because what local foundations and local financial supporters want to see are engaging experiences for your students. They want to see smiling faces, they want to see accomplishments, and this is how you do it. You put it in action and you show people what it can do, and you have the kids advocate for it because they're the ones who are really getting the positive impact in the end. And that's what pulls on the heartstrings of donors, and that's what gets you funds moving forward. So if you can just set up a small system with a program, provide some structure, you're hitting the ground running, and you're already positioning yourself to be able to fundraise for a large system if that's something that you want to do. Now, how do you keep a program running once you've already started it? Let's say you've secured $5,000 to build a small one, but you're going to have operating expenses each year. Now, if you have adequate climate control, lighting, either sunlight or artificial light, and good system management, which comes through good programming, then even small systems can generate revenue. For example, a 32 square foot growing area or a 4x8 growing area can produce 32 small heads of lettuce per week. It comes out to this because 32 square feet with 4 plants per square foot, which is on 6-inch centers, 6-inch centers. That's a total of 128 plants. And it only takes about 28 days for a 2-week-old seedling to reach maturity on 6-inch centers. So that allows for you to take the 128 plants, divided by 4, and that gives you 32 plants a week. And if you had a pre-planned weekly sale to staff, parents, and or a community partner, like a food charity or something, then you can generate $1,152 a year when sold at just $1 a head. What if you got $2 a head? That'd be $2,304 or whatever that number times 2 is. But you can really start to understand how you can generate revenue. When it comes to fundraising, a lot of people think, well, where am I going to go find the money? The money is staring at you, staring you right in the face. And that's your aquaponics system staring you right in the face. That is how you generate revenue. And what's really kind of cool about this is when you structure it to run as a mini little enterprise, 1, you can generate revenue. 2, it brings great structure to the program because every year every week plants are getting planted and plants are getting harvested. And then students start to understand what a career looks like, what entrepreneurship looks like, and they see themselves creating value. So not only does it bring revenue to the program, it brings value to the students. It brings just a really cool educational program, even on a small scale. Here's one of our small systems in Mooresville, North Carolina at Pine Lake Prep. They harvest several heads of lettuce a week, and they take it home with students because they have some funding in their budget that just pays for the program. But they could generate revenue out of this. And you'll see here, they have a very well-managed system because their aquaponics club is so well run. And they started out with less than 10 students in their aquaponics club, and now last year they had over 42 students, grades 6 through 12, that participated in the aquaponics club on a regular basis. And so it just goes to show, even on a small scale, if you have good management, you can produce a lot of food, aka program revenue. Now, you can also throw fundraising events for the small systems. This picture on the right here is also from Pine Lake Prep. That little bin of tilapia fillets that have been fried up, that came right out of their tank. These students took the fish from fingerling all the way to harvest, and then were able to process the fish themselves, and they'll never forget that for the rest of their life. These students here, 50 years from now, will remember the fish fry that they had in 11th grade that year. And it gets me happy just talking about it because it's such a cool experience to have and to have been a part of. Now, let's say that you want to throw a big fish fry event. You only have a small system, then just go buy some tilapia fillets and then host a big fish fry because it's still going to be on theme. And who cares it didn't come out of the tank? Just be honest about it. But the main thing is here, we're trying to raise money for this really cool program. Another thing we've also found out is that local restaurants love to teach students how to cook fish. They'll come in with a chef and they will do a whole engagement sort of session where they teach students how to cook. And they do this because, one, they can give back to the community. Two, they love taking selfies with the kids and showing what the restaurant does for their community. So it suits sort of their goals for PR. It suits your goals for generating revenue. So think about these community partnerships. Think about events. But essentially for small systems, you can sell enough produce and you can throw a couple events a year, just one big event a year. All of a sudden, you got a couple $1,000s coming in each year to sustain your program. And no matter what grants come and disappear, it doesn't matter because you have a robust funding mechanism in place already. Now, fundraising for large aquaponics systems. Most of our high school systems are larger greenhouse systems, and they produce 150 to 200 heads of lettuce a week, or bok choy, or whatever we're growing. So let's look at this first bullet. I just wanted to kind of preface what I mean by large. In public schools, the best place to find funding for a large greenhouse is through the Career and Technical Education Department. This is also known as CTE. CTE is federally funded through the Perkins Grant. We actually pay for this through our tax dollars. And the Labor Department invests in career and technical education in every high school in the nation that's public so that we can advance our workforce as a country. And there is money out there if you have really great programming in place to pay for a new greenhouse. These greenhouses typically cost about $100,000, but when you consider they'll spend $100,000 on a new scoreboard for the football field, you start to understand that that's not that much money, even in low-income public schools, if you can tap into CTE money. Now, aquaponics is unique because aquaponics programs can fit into several of the career pathways for CTE, such as agriculture, horticulture, business, marketing, and probably even more out there. Now, if you have a small system already in place at your school and you want to go bigger, then invite some of the local foundations and local companies to come see the program in action and see the students interacting with it. And when they come and they're like, man, this is great. What you guys are doing is awesome. You know, what can I do to help? You can pull out like a little 3D rendering of a large system and say, this is what we're going for. And the budget to do this is $150,000. And we think we can do X, 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 and X with it. And we can impact several hundred students. We can produce this much food for a food charity, and we can self-fund it through the revenue generated. So then you're bringing people in. This is what fundraising is. Now you're bringing people in to see the impact of your program. Before you know it, even if they can't fund it, they'll say, you know, I have a friend who'll be really into this. Before you know it, you have 3 or 4 small family foundations who might be interested. You have businesses who might be interested in getting this thing off the ground. So it's not always about grants as much as it is proving your concept and then having a vision in place and the numbers to make that vision happen. And then once you get them talking to the students, their heart starts to melt. Then you hit them with that budget and you hit them with the vision and they go, you know, you're right. That's an awesome vision. So Webb Street School, which we discussed earlier, this is what their larger system looks like. They started off with a 4x8 system that I described in one of the earlier slides, just a very small aquaponics system. And they recorded the data they got, the hours of involvement they got with their students. They took pictures, they took videos, and invited a small family foundation to their greenhouse to see their tiny little aquaponics system. And then 2 months later, more than $30,000 shows up from that foundation through a grant that was made specifically for the Webb Street School aquaponics system. And it was because they proved their concept and they showed the impact that they could have on their students. And so who wouldn't want to give $30,000 to a school who's growing the healthiest food around, who's addressing environmental sustainability issues, who's providing hands-on education to their students, providing healthy food for the community? I mean, it's a no-brainer really when you learn how to do the storytelling right. Now, financial sustainability for large programs. This is when it actually gets really easy. So a larger aquaponic system, in this context, I'm talking a 250 square foot growing bed, can self-fund the program through produce sales. And I'll talk about how all this money works here in a minute. But for instance, if sold at $2 a head, A system this size can produce $15,000 to $20,000 per year, which covers all the cost of materials. Plus, you can hire a part-time staff that will provide professional development, educational, and technical support to the school. So now you have the programs in place. Now you have students running a small enterprise. Now you have revenue coming in to support the school program. And now you're so robust and you're on the ground that almost nothing can stop you. And the administration loves it because you have this dynamic program for the students. They never have to come out of their budget to support you after that first year. And then, it really works out for everybody. Now, who's going to buy $15,000 to $20,000 of produce per year? Well, you could partner with a restaurant, which we partnered with several. And to give you an idea what that looks like at Myers Park High School, we sell to Myers Park Country Club. They give us $1 per head, which is, and I think we're producing about 200 heads per week. So you look at 200 times 52 weeks in a year, and that gives you more than $10,000 a year. And that pretty much funds that program. If you wanted to go $3 a head, now you're talking about even more money. And it's great for the country club because they get the freshest salad mix in town, and then they put on their menu that when you buy a salad, you support the program at the school. So now their customers feel like they are giving to a good cause just by purchasing a salad there. So it addresses the altruistic goals of the customer. It addresses the public relations goals of the restaurant, and it accomplishes the revenue goals that you have as an aquaponics program. Now, you can also partner with a food charity, which might kind of sound counterintuitive because when you think of a food charity, you think about donations. But food charities also purchase a lot of food. For instance, we partner with Refugee Support Services here in Charlotte. They support several hundred refugee families who are acclimating to the United States, learning English, trying to get settled down in a home, find a job. And each week, they box up food for 110 of those families who are really, really struggling. Within those boxes are lots of staple foods that last a long time, but they need fresh produce. So one of our schools at Garinger High School is a low-income school here in Charlotte, North Carolina, with a high international population. And so I called Refugee Support Services through our board member who made a connection. And they said, we have a lot of students who go to Garinger High School. A lot of our families have students at Garinger High School. So we came up with the idea. We said, well, since you guys have avenues in which you can raise money through local churches and other people who support you, would you purchase $200 of produce a week? And that would support the education of the refugee family students at the school. It would drive revenue to our nonprofit that runs the program. It would provide fresh food to the 110 families that pick up the boxes a week. And then the faith-based organizations that are supporting refugee support services, they feel like their dollar is not only purchasing the healthy food, but is also providing the education to the students of the families and then helping out another nonprofit. So you can meet so many needs if you find the right community partnerships. So this is really just a great example of once you're on the ground, treat a program and structure a program as if it were a business, because businesses have things to do every day in order to run a business. And that's great because you know what kids need? Things to do every day in school that keeps them engaged so they're not falling asleep in class. So when you have a set of daily tasks every day, when you're harvesting once or twice a week, planting once or twice a week, cleaning up, the floors all the time, keeping it sanitary, going through food safety protocol, that structure creates really dynamic and really great programming that really gives students a crash course in what the real world looks like after they graduate high school. So it's just a lot of beautiful things happening when you can create the right partnerships and drive revenue to your program. Here's a harvest happening at one of our high schools. You can just see that really gorgeous lettuce that they're harvesting. You would think that that's at a commercial facility. No, that's at one of our 5 high school programs. Novices can run aquaponics systems that produce beautiful stuff like this if you have the program in place and if you have the procedures and the operations running at peak performance. And when we talked about the part-time staff earlier, that's what that does for you. When you have someone who can dedicate themselves to quality control, to assisting teachers, to helping students with activities, then you can really make this thing happen. And you got these little mini businesses running in schools that are self-perpetuating financially. Here's just an example of all the stuff that gets produced. They get it in bins, put it in a cold storage, and then it gets delivered to a restaurant by volunteers who then drive it over there. Now, events and sponsorships. This is another way to raise money. With a large aquaponics system, you don't just sell the vegetables, but you can also host an end-of-year fish fry at the school. What's exciting is you can partner with the culinary and marketing classes to create a school-wide event and increase awareness and even increase future enrollment into the aquaponics classes, because now the whole school is engaged. And when you have a culinary department coming in the greenhouse and pulling out fish, putting them on ice and processing it, you change those kids' life forever. They'll never, ever forget that. And then you can raise money through your fish fry event. So we're talking, now you're raising $15,000 to $25,000 a year per school. So it's really easy when you start to understand how the programming intersects with the revenue generation. And then you can invite local businesses to sponsor these events because they love seeing their name and logo on really good stuff in the community. It's great PR for them. Here's an example of an event that we throw each year called the Homegrown Tomato Festival. Last year, we had 790 people show up in our 4th year doing it. And you can see on the left-hand part of the image is our aquaponics system on top of the stage. So we had people coming in and buying tomatoes from local vendors and competing in tomato activities, but they were all directed to the stage to learn about the aquaponics programming, where students and teachers led people through a tour. Just doing that has gotten us 2 or 3 more schools on board since we've started doing this. And any way you can take the beautiful experiences happening at the schools with the aquaponics programs and put them out to the public, the better. You're not fundraising for something really boring. You got to remember that. Like, aquaponics is cool and people see it as something that's cool. And so you have that as a weapon in your pocket when fundraising. You have the cool, shiny thing. You have the thing that meets all the criteria of the modernized educational world. So it's not hard to fundraise if you can tell your story right. And fundraising is not about going out and finding all the grants. Fundraising is about creating a vision for what a program looks like in the school, creating a budget for that, and then you go seek the money with the storytelling, and you have the budget there to back you up and to give specifics to your financial supporters on what you need. And then you get your supporters really engaged. We actually created a wrestling title belt for the winner of the tomato competition. And he got to sit there in front of several hundred people and be crowned the belt. And that guy is a 100 Gardens fan for life. And he will volunteer at schools. He will donate each year. And it's about these community partnerships, and it's about community engagement and getting people invested in what you're doing at your school. And you'll see we're had this presentation right in front of our aquaponics exhibit. So it's just about reinforcing the story and telling everybody about the really cool stuff you got going on. Now, we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we will give you basically all the stuff, all the tools that we know in regards to how you start a program. So this is step-by-step, basically, of how we create new programs and keep them going. Now, if you're out there and you want one of our programs, because we have curriculum and we have all this stuff kind of sorted out already, you can reach us. But for everybody else who wants to do it on their own, I mean, we're here to support you. And this is how you do it, step by step. Number 1, pursue schools who want a program. This means the leadership has got to be on board. Only when this is secure, you move on to number 2. Once you have the support of the administration and staff, then 2, you develop a scope of work and a budget. This means laying out everything you want to do from a facilities standpoint to a program standpoint. Once you have facilities and programming worked out cost-wise, then you can develop the budget and you'll know how much it's going to take to start it, how much money we need each year, how much we need to pay people to help run a program, what fish food costs. Get all that stuff into a short document where you basically tell the story of what you're going to do. 3, before you start raising money, you need to develop and sign a contract or formal agreement with the school. We ask for a minimum of 3 years. We try and shoot for 5 every time. And what we've learned is that it kind of sounds cumbersome to sign a contract with the school, but administration loves that. It means that you're serious about this. It means that you were here for the long term. And then if they sign that, they're now invested. They say, wow, we're going to have an aquaponics program at our school. And it gets them already thinking, what teachers are going to love this? Which of my star students are going to take leadership on this first year? And it gets them thinking about it. When you have that investment, man, things start to really happen. So now you have a contract signed. 4, you start fundraising. Now, what we've learned is that after you sign a contract, some of the schools say, well, hey, how much is it going to be? And if you're doing a small system for $5,000, almost 50% of the time, a school says, oh, that's it? Okay, well, you know, we just love the whole vision of this. And for $5,000, I don't think we could spend $5,000 on anything else and get what we're getting for this. So either the school might just fund that one, or you go out and you start raising funds the same way we talked about before, telling a story. Number 5, once you got money in, you build a system and you get it flowing. Number 6, you start to bring in teachers and provide professional development, which means training the teachers on how to use the curriculum and run activities. So you provide professional development, and teachers also have to get a certain amount of hours of professional development each year to remain certified teachers. So they have to do it anyways. So you can provide that through your program. And then you provide them any curriculum materials they may need to be able to run the program. Number 7, establish community relationships and revenue streams, meaning who's going to buy the produce, what are the events going to look like, all that. And then number 8, you start providing great programming and an end of year event to raise even more money if you need it. And then number 9, repeat steps 6 to 8 each year. So basically, once the thing is built, each year to provide sustainability, you start at number 6, provide professional development and curriculum. 7, establish community relationships and revenue streams. 8, provide great programming. That's all you got to do year by year. If you do those 3 things, you have all the money you need, you have all the engagement you need, and you have great educational outcomes for your students. It really becomes that simple when you start thinking about it. So fundraising is programming. Programming is fundraising. Great educational programs and outcomes are a result of the intersection of programming and fundraising. So that will do it. I want to thank everybody who attended today. Thank the Aquaponics Association for letting me educate everybody. And if you have any questions at all, you can email me at sam@100gardens.org. And if you'd like to learn a little bit more about our programming and maybe get one of our programs in your school, you can go to www.100gardens.org. Thank you so much. And please attend as many of these sessions as you can and provide support for all the other presenters. Thank you.